Today, I'm sharing a case study of a flower farmer who used my early bird promotion campaign formula to help her lock in the majority of her flower subscriptions for next summer. And she did so by the end of November. We're going to hear her entire story, how she did it, what she learned, and you're going to see that this stuff works for other farms. Let's get started.
Hey there, this is Corinna Bench, and welcome to the My Digital Farmer podcast. In today's market, it's not enough to just grow your product. You've got to know how to sell it too. Welcome to the My Digital Farmer podcast, where we reveal online marketing strategies and tips to help farmers like you get better and more confident at marketing. Learn how to find more customers, increase your sales, and build a strong brand for your farm. Let's start the show.
Well, welcome to episode 247 of the My Digital Farmer podcast. I'm your host, Corinna Bench, one of the farmers at Shared Legacy Farms out in Elmore, Ohio. I'm also the founder of MyDigitalFarmer.com, which is all about trying to help other farmers like you get more confident and savvy in your marketing and sales strategy so that you can grow a profitable business. How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to the show. Big shout out to all of my regulars. And I know there's a ton of you that binge listen once you discover my podcast. And I just want to high five you right now and say, keep going. Keep going, girl. You got this. If you are new to the show, I'm really glad you're here today. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you get my latest episode that drops every Wednesday. And go check out my first 10 episodes. I always tell people to go there and start at the beginning. I designed them to be an on-ramp into the marketing lingo. You'll learn a ton. Another great place to go to learn farm marketing fast is to get onto my email list. You can subscribe at mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe. Pretty easy to remember. And what happens next is I send you an email roughly every week that's basically a curated selection of the best information you need to know to slowly learn the fundamentals of farm marketing. I'm going to share some freebies and some gifts with you, but also introduce you to some influencers and people you need to know about and concepts and tools that are going to help you. So please, I've heard so much good feedback from people who get onto that email list. You can get that at mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe. Today's podcast is sponsored by Farm Marketing School. This is my monthly membership where farmers can come in and build marketing assets one at a time in special 30-day build projects that I've created for you. Right now, there are 8 projects inside of Farm Marketing School, and every month a new one gets added. And you basically subscribe for 30 days, or you can stay in for a couple months or 3 months. You can stay in the whole year. But what you're doing is you go inside and you decide, this is the project that I want to work on. You take the class, the workshop class that's recorded, you just watch it, and then you build it yourself. So this is the DIY version of Accelerator. There's no coaching element or mastermind or Zoom meetups. It's just you going in there, watching the class that the accelerators saw live with me, and then working on it on your own. So if you're a DIY type of person and you think you can do it yourself, this is an amazing resource. There are projects in there for how to build a promotion plan, how to build your email nurture sequence, how to write a great weekly email, how to build the website homepage messaging, what goes on that homepage, how to build a lead magnet, and more. So if you want to see what's in the Farm Marketing School, you can head to mydigitalfarmer.com/FMS. And I encourage you to subscribe for 1 month. Check it out. I have a whole onboarding, a crash course in marketing that I encourage you to take in your first week. There's an assessment inside of there that's going to help you know which elements you should build first. It's so good, and I would love it if you would give it a shot for a month. Let me know what you think, and if you decide you like it, you can stay in there for several months in the off season and get a ton of your marketing stuff done. Well, let's jump into today's episode. I have a guest today, and her name is Megan Rudroff from Missouri. She's a flower farmer, and Megan has reached out to me a couple of different times over the last few years. I remember the first time was after I sent out an email about how to write a great nurture email sequence. And she wrote back something really awesome and just said, hey, this was super helpful, the framework that you shared, and I can't wait to get started on it. But then she reached out to me again fairly recently and said, oh my gosh, I had amazing results with my own version of a launch. I recently did a podcast episode about our early bird sign up launch that we offer to our CSA members to get them to renew their shares. We do that every year in October. And I talked about it on this podcast and how the whole process went and what our results were. I'll make sure I link up that episode in the show notes if you want to go listen to it, because apparently it inspired Megan to change how she did her promotional launch for her flower subscription customers. And so she wrote in to tell me it worked so well that she ended up getting like 60% of her sales done in that week. And then, as you'll find out later in this episode, she's almost sold out now, and it's the very beginning of January. So she had a ton more sales come in the weeks shortly thereafter. So I said, oh my gosh, will you please come on to the show and share your story? Because I think it's great when other farmers can tell how the process worked for them too, right? I'm not the anomaly. This is a formula that many businesses use and it works. And so when we can have a case study or we can have other examples of how businesses in the farm space are using it to great success, I think that's really inspiring. So I just finished recording the episode with her. She has a lot of really great wisdom. We don't just talk about that. We also talk about some of the other lessons that she's learned along the way in building her business. And there's some really good gems in there that I want to make sure you listen to the whole thing, because there's some wisdom I think that comes out, especially towards the end. I'm excited to share this with you, so let me read her bio and let's get right to it. Today's guest is Megan Rudroff. Megan started Rudy Lane Flower Farm in 2019 with the intention of solely growing peonies as an added enterprise on their traditional cattle and row crop farm in the heart of Missouri. However, since peonies take a few years before they can be harvested, she planted a few hundred dahlias to cash flow for more peony plants. Then throw in a worldwide pandemic and an unforeseen addiction to dahlias, and now Megan grows 600 peonies, 800 dahlias, thousands of tulips, and too many annuals to count that she sells primarily retail via her subscription program and farm stand. Though Megan is the primary flower farmer, her husband Lane and their 3 daughters all play a part in the flower business. Lane does all the equipment operation and flower deliveries, and their girls, ages 8, 6, and 3, help with planting, harvesting, and their favorite, deadheading spent blooms. Megan believes that growing flowers is the easy part. It's selling those flowers that is truly the hard part. Megan's full-time career is in natural resource conservation, not marketing. And because of that, she credits podcasts like My Digital Farmer for helping her flower business become successful from the start. Please join me in welcoming Megan Rudroff to the show. Well, Megan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Why don't you get started by giving an overview of your farm, how you got started, your size, where you're located, all that stuff, wherever you want to go.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm Megan Rudroff from Rudy Lane Flower Farm. We're located in central Missouri, just about 30 minutes east of Jefferson City. We started planting flowers in 2019 and officially started selling in 2020. So we're going into our 5th season now. We weren't actually ever intending to be a flower farm initially. My husband and I bought the neighboring farm to the family farm way back in 2010 when we graduated college. And I feel like we were naive enough to not know any better. And that was the blessing going into it and buying a farm when you're 22 years old. But it's been a happy, definitely a good circumstance. But at that time, they were already renting this farm. It's a cattle farm. It's about 170 acres of pasture and hay next to our the farm that has more pasture and crop and things like that. So we're really a traditional agriculture farm. But ever since that time, I kind of always wanted to have like something that was a little bit more mine, because the cows were I didn't want to mess with the cows. They're too big. I'm definitely not doing the tractor stuff. So but I never could nail down what would be my thing. But I thought about so many things. And if there is a book about it, I probably read it. Everything from meat goats to pasture chickens to raising mushrooms indoors. And nothing just ever really stuck until, believe it or not, I was scrolling on Instagram back in like 2018, and I saw this beautiful truck full of flowers. And in retrospect, that was Floret, as a lot of your listeners will be familiar with. And at the time, I just thought, well, flowers are grown in the Netherlands or Central America, and that's where all the flowers can be grown, and that's where they come from. But the more I researched it and looked into it and saw that this is certainly something that can be done locally and, on a small piece of a farm. So we just did a ton of research. And at that point, I was ready just to be a peony farm. So my goal was to plant 3,000 peonies. And I was going to have a busy 6 months in or 6 weeks in April and June, but in May and June. But but then we'd be done. We'd go back to farming regular stuff. So if you know anything about peonies, though, they're really expensive. So I wasn't going to be able to go out and plant 3,000 in the first whack. So we started. My goal was to do like around 300 a year for 10 years, and we'd get there eventually. So that's what we did. The first fall of 2019, we planted 300 peonies. They take a little bit of time to get established, a couple years. So I ordered some dahlias to plant in the meantime. So the dahlias were just a means to an end. I'm going to grow these dahlias, harvest the stems, and sell those just so I can cash flow more peonies. Like, I wasn't going to be a dahlia farmer. But the thing about dahlias is once you start growing them, you just don't ever stop. There's a bug and it bites you, and now you're stuck with them forever. So we have morphed from being a peony farm to having we have about 600 peonies now, 800 dahlias, thousands of tulips, annuals, you name it, we've probably grown it. So we've definitely changed over time. We sell via subscriptions, farm stand, and some wholesale, and then we also do workshops as part of our business too.
Yeah. So how did that, give me a little bit more background on like how it grew over time, as far as your customer base and your revenue. Like, did you see huge leaps of growth from year to year, or how did that look?
A little bit. So it was, I've definitely grown a lot as a business person in the years that I've been growing flowers. So the first summer, which was 2020, my plan was like, these were going to kind of sell themselves because of the wedding industry and things like that. Dahlias are a hard thing to ship. So I thought this would be good. Well, in 2020, we had an abrupt halt on our wedding industry, if you guys remember. And so we had to pivot, and that's when the farm stand came about. And so I basically would like put a few flowers, and I would like kind of mention them on my personal Facebook page, but because at the time it's funny looking back, but at the time I was so nervous to like tell people I've got these flowers for sale. Like, this is, I don't know why, it was silly, but I was. And so in that first summer, it was like a lot of my friends and family and things like that would come down and buy them. And they loved it because you couldn't do anything else in 2020. Like you couldn't go anywhere. So I kind of marketed it at the time as it was non-contact. It was outdoors. It was something they could bring their kids down to. Just pick out whatever flowers you want, drop it in the box, drop your money in the box, and kind of go on. And so kind of being able to make sales that first year, even though it was just from like friends and family, kind of gave me the confidence to build out a business Facebook page and a website and all the things from there. And it's really just kind of been a pretty, the growth has been really steady. And I feel like I am almost at max capacity with what I'm growing. Like, I don't feel like I'm sitting there with flowers and wishing someone would come along. So I feel good about that now here after the fourth year or so.
Is there a plan to continue to expand, or do you feel like you've reached your capacity?
Well, I have to be really smart with how we expand just because I am limited by myself working full time, and we have three daughters, and my husband farms full time, and in the off season he works too. So, we are limited
Mhm.
by
Yeah.
more so by our labor or our time than we are by the area that we have or the ability to plant more. So I am always expanding, but I'm trying to do it thoughtfully and in a way that we're really utilizing what we are growing and not just throwing out more seeds and then doing more work, but not really reaping what we sow,
Mm.
literally.
Yeah, so smart. I know that it's very tempting to just keep growing for the sake of growing, and that sometimes that doesn't always mean that you're actually improving the quality of your life or bringing in a whole lot more revenue or however you define success. So I love that you're thinking about those questions. Um, so how many people are on your team? Like it's just you, right?
Yes, it's me
Okay.
and my husband, and we rope in our my three young daughters. They love deadheading. I always say that's their that's their favorite part of the farm because they just get to snip the flower heads off. They love that. But yeah, right now it's just the two of us, and we have not ventured into hiring anybody else. And
Okay.
it's always something we're considering. But like you mentioned before, does that do anything for our net profit? I'm not sure yet, and that's what I'm trying to
Hmm.
for sure analyze
Yeah.
this year.
And what does the season for you look like? Like when does it start and end?
Depending on Mother Nature, normally we start with tulips and daffodils in April. We'll go on into big peony harvest in May and beginning of June, and then all of the annuals and dahlias come thereafter. So we're normally about beginning of April through about mid-October, depending on when frost hits. We're all field grown. We don't have a high tunnel or anything right now,
Okay.
so we don't have any season extension.
Okay. And then just give me a rough idea before we kind of look at your overall sales process. Like, what are the different types of products that are in your product ladder? You sort of mentioned them before, but I want to get a better idea of like what are the big revenue drivers from all of those different products that you have.
Yeah, so kind of our entry level, if you will, is our farm stand. We sell mostly paper wrapped bouquets down at the farm stand, and those are they're not reserved. You just swing in and grab one. Those are usually on Saturday mornings. And then we have the subscription program, which we do two subscriptions. One's a spring weekly, 4 weeks. And then one is a summer and it's monthly. So 5 months, May through September. Um, in addition to, those are kind of our main retail flower sales. And then we also do a little bit of wholesale to some florists. And then we do the last thing is like our workshops, which we do a variety of workshops from seed starting, flower arranging, and then lastly, like wreath, winter evergreen wreath workshops where they can
Mhm.
build their own and decorate.
Well, and that gives you something to sell in that time of the year when you don't have flowers too, right? So,
Yeah, and
yeah.
people really, really enjoy that. It's
Mhm.
something they can do. It gives them a holiday spirit. It's inside. It's an
Mhm.
activity, and so that's been a real big hit for sure.
Yeah. So no weddings. Did that end up not being
No,
a You're laughing. I love
I've
it.
never. Okay, I have done a wedding, but that was like my cousin's, and but obviously, like I said, working full time, also giving up a Saturday or a Friday night and Saturday would be tough for our family. And then
Mhm.
I'm also really adverse to planning logistics, like my least favorite thing in life. So I think that's probably just not a match for me. And I can't imagine really it ever being a match. And I'm always happy to refer brides who inquire to some lovely designers in our area that buy and support local flowers. So
Right, right. Well, you reached out to me a few weeks ago because you were trying to run a renewal campaign, promotion campaign for your flower subscriptions. Was it a renewal campaign or was it just a promotion to new
It's
people?
like a 50-50 between a
Okay.
renewal slash more like a kind of a launch, you know.
Yeah, they can do that. It can do both things. And you had some pretty awesome results, you thought, and you just wanted to kind of come and share that with me and let me know, oh my gosh, this was so great. And I wanted you to come on to the show and just kind of tell that story of how you did that promotion, your renewal campaign, talk that out and share some of the pieces of wisdom that you learned out of it. So why don't we start with that part of the story for this interview, and then I'll have some more questions after that. But so give us sort of an overview of what that launch looked like and what your goals were.
Yeah, so our subscription launch is in the fall. It's normally, so I had to be kind of strategic because my wreath workshops are a pretty big, is a pretty big deal or whatever. So I had to like plan out who's coming first, when it's going to be. I got pushing up against Black Friday and trying to get ahead of the retailers on who's buying what for who. So I had to really think that through. And so it settled on the second week of, I think it was maybe going into the third week of November, but it was to be the week before Thanksgiving week. And so the reality of the flower bouquet subscriptions is a lot of them, I'm not sure what percentage, but a decent, probably 75% of them are gifts that people are buying, whether that's for their mom, their sister, their mother-in-law. And then if thinking about it longer term, even Valentine's Day and Mother's Day as well. I don't want them to be for Mother's Day because I'm already trying to be going. I'm already trying to have them going. So I'm kind of pushed out of Mother's Day. When it comes to Valentine's Day, 94% of my followers on Facebook and Instagram are women. So I'm not really reaching the husbands or the spouses or significant others that would be the ones buying for Valentine's Day. So I feel like my big shot is Christmas. And so that's why I do that launch for that season. And so I had listened to your CSA renewal campaign podcast and kind of the way you did that. And I think I morphed it with another one of your podcasts where you did like a daily prize thing. So I kind of melded those two together. And so I spent the first week of November talking about subscriptions, but they weren't open. So they weren't going to open until November, like that Sunday. And so I spent that week before just talking about the specifics of the program of the CSA. And so you would like, here's what's in it. Here's how often it comes. We do delivery to these areas. And those posts were notoriously poor performing. So I get like 1 or 2 likes or whatever, but I knew that those weren't like the glamorous posts, but I want to get that information out there. So that was kind of my like, here's everything you need to know week. And then I let everyone know that they were going to open on Sunday, which was a change based on what your podcast recommended. I was going to do Monday. And then you said you do yours on a weekend because people are like around and available and they can like have time to get their credit cards out or whatever. So I changed mine from Monday to Sunday, which I was glad I did. And then the big launch week, I had a daily prize that I announced. So I would have things like I had a little flower arranging kit. I just got a little box from Hobby Lobby and put like some snips and a flower frog and some other little flower design items that you would need. I got a custom dahlia spread puzzle made, and so that was one of the prizes you could win. I partnered with a friend of mine who's a potter, and she made a handcrafted vase. So that was kind of fun to like cross promote with her. But obviously it totally matched with what we were with flowers. And then another friend of mine has a spa, and so she had this candle and like a bougie candle, I call it, and it smelled really good, but it was like rose, and so I was like, oh, big flower. But you know, her product is also like a luxury self-care type thing too. So she and I partner a lot. And then the last day was going to be a free subscription. So that was like the one I kept in my back pocket. But we basically initially I was going to say whoever buys today would be entered to win this prize. Whoever enters tomorrow, I would announce it on Tuesday, you're entered to win this prize. But one of the things you mentioned in your podcast was that like days 2, 3, and 4 are like notoriously slow. And you have a lot of people, and I don't have that many people. So I was like, well, if hers are slow, I might not have any. And I was like, what am I going to do if I have 0 people sign up? And I'm like,
nobody gets it
tomorrow. Like that felt a little embarrassing. So I was like, I'm just going to announce them each day, but everyone's going in the pot, and you're going to have 5 prizes you could potentially win if you buy this week. So that was kind of how I got around that.
Yeah. And if you buy early, what that does is it incentivizes people to buy early because they know they have 5 chances to win something, right? In theory.
Yeah. And it's like you, by only announcing it once a day, it was like it kept that momentum going, like even if someone already bought, they're like, oh, okay, that's exciting. I'm still entered to win that or whatever. So that was pretty cool. And so basically the result of it was that I sold 60% of my total subscriptions in that week. Wow. And so of that 60%, a third of them sold on the first day. So those were my like diehards, a lot of my repeat customers. They wanted to make sure they didn't miss out. They were there 6 p.m. ready to buy. And then like days 2, 3, and 4, I sold like 15%, like hardly any of them. And then on the last day, I sold 50%. So half of all of them that week came on the final day, which is when I announced the big subscription, free giveaway. And I said, like, if you are going to buy one of these anyway, you might as well do it today because you got a chance to win. And so that was a really good success. And even after that week, I sold, I'm down to 10% left. So by Christmas, I had sold 90% of our subscriptions.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was the offer outside of these bonus gifts that were happening? Was there like a lower price, or was that basically the offer, the incentive to get them to
that was the offer? And that felt a little like, because for last year I had done a discount, and I know that my prices are already too low. It's easy to underprice yourself, and I know I'm already doing that. So I told myself, do not do a discount. Just see how you can do. If you need to run a discount later, we can, but let's just try this. And so I did have in my favor a little bit of scarcity in that I did sell out last summer by like middle of April or something. So not fantastic, but I said like these are going to sell out because I sold out last year. So I had a little bit of that on my side. And then obviously the momentum from the prizes. I had the buying power of going into Christmas. So and just making it easy for folks. So I kind of like went with that as far as my marketing and kind of encouraging people to buy at that time.
I'm just curious, what was your mental state like as you went through this launch? Like the day you started and then the day after it started and you saw that you had such a great response, like what was going on in your head during that time? And like, how did you feel about things? Was there a big shift? Do you remember how you felt?
Yeah. So obviously it's always nervous going into a launch thinking like, okay, nobody's going to buy this. And even when I knew, like I have a few like diehards that are like, I'm going to get it. So I was like, in my mind, I was like, well, I know I've sold, 3 or whatever, like going in, I'm like, that's good. And obviously I had a little bit of like, I kind of had a good feeling, but last year I only opened up my spring subscriptions, which is my smaller batch before Christmas. And then finally, when those sold out a few days for Christmas, I opened up the summer ones. But this time I was doing both of them. So I was like, well, I only might. Well, in the first day, I sold as many as I did like before Christmas last year. So obviously after day 1, I'm like, okay, this is good. And then day 2, 3, and 4, I had like almost no sales. But in my head, I literally was like, Corinna said this was going to happen. She told me it's going to be high in the front and high at the end and low and nothing in the middle. So I was like, that's fine. I literally told my husband, it's okay. Corinna said this is how it goes. So I'm like, I knew I had that in my head. And then seriously, I was like, I don't need to worry because this is just how it goes. And that's mostly why I messaged you, was like, you were right, and we should let everyone know. Like, this is just how it goes. So
Yeah.
that honestly did more for me, as much for me as like the success I had on the front day, was just knowing that, like, yeah, probably the middle days are a little like lackluster. And then on the final day, having that big push, was, it just took all the pressure off, because I'm
Yes.
sure like everyone who listens to your podcast hates selling their product. Like, that's why we're here. We're learning how to do it easier, because it's my least favorite part is the marketing. And so my goal was that I could just, hopefully I could sell so many of them that week that I can just sit back and like coast the rest of the time, and not be one of those people hammering everyone about, Christmas and this and buy now, buy now, buy now. So that was super helpful to me, from just being self-conscious a little bit about selling. And I will add, I did send a daily email, which I never would have done that before. But I did just send like a super short, I told them the week before, I'm going to send you a daily email. Please don't block me. Like,
Mhm.
I said, I'll just announce the prizes so you can see it, and then I'll have a link you can click. And so I did that. I was like, this is it. This is the last few things. I just sent one a day. And that went fine too. I think that was, of course, helpful to kind of remind people and give them a quick, easy link to click if they wanted to. I didn't look to see what sales came directly from those emails, but I think that was a good choice to do that and keep it simple though.
Yeah. Are you able to tell how many of your customers were repeat customers from last year? Like, just because it's gifts, like, is it a lot lower of a retention?
The retention is lower,
Hmm.
definitely lower, and I don't know if it's. I'm trying to figure out if it's realistic to expect repeat,
Yeah.
or the nature of it being a gift means that it's not, like, I don't know. That's why I'm
Hmm.
still trying to sort that out, and kind of see a little bit, should I be pushing more for renewals, or just understanding if this is kind of a gift thing. I don't know. I don't know yet.
Yeah.
I do have
Some,
repeat customers, but I do have people who purchased for like their mom last year, and then this year they bought mom and mother-in-law and
hmm.
sister. Like, so I do. There's definitely some of that, for sure. But I don't know like what percentage of my sales that accounts
Hmm.
for.
That would be an interesting, for anybody who's listening. I know you don't want to do this, but that might be an interesting type of offer to run for this kind of a product. If you know that people tend to double up, or, oh, I'm going to get it now for two other people, you could offer that, like, hey, if you end up getting more than one subscription, you get a slight discount or an extra bonus flower. Did you ask people to forward your email to someone else who would be interested? Like, if they didn't want the gift to do the gift again, like maybe they could forward that to someone else.
I did it. I'll
Oh.
make a note of that.
There you go. There's an idea. Well,
Right.
what I want to point out though is that you entered this launch um with a certain kind of mindset, which is always a little bit of nervousness and trepidation and like, oh crap, here we go. I hope this works. Let's cross our fingers, right? And then as you saw results come in on the first day, it makes you feel more confident, right? And then you show up differently for the rest of the launch. Like, you just that's how it is for me, at least. Like, if the first day does indeed start going well, I just suddenly feel this like adrenaline pouring through me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's working. And then I'm more likely to be confident and act confident and keep like pushing the sale and not retract but expand. And I think that helps actually generate the rest of the sales, because you act differently when you feel like it's going to go well, when you believe it's actually working and it's going to go well. And I feel like that's kind of what was happening with you too. Um, as you're telling your story, I can see that by the last day you were like, here we go, man, we're going to get there,
Yeah,
which is
for
awesome.
sure.
How does it feel to like be just shy of, 10% sold out?
It's just a huge relief, because um I like I said, I don't love selling, but I do love serving my customers. And I don't know if it's just the nature of me, but I love to like educate. That's kind of my jam. Like I love talking about like here's an easy way that you can design flowers or arrange them in your house. Like I just want to make things easier and like share tidbits. Like that's my I love that side of like the social media and things that I post. So it's fun. It's a really for me to just feel like I can just get back to that and not feel like I have to be like, oh, also do this, buy this, please buy this. Because and I know a little bit of that's a mind block. Obviously I'm a
Yeah.
business, so my customer or the people who follow me are expecting me to have something for sale. Like I should know better. Um, and I'm working on that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a hard task to kind of like reroute your brain a little bit and know that it's part of the job.
Yeah. Now you mentioned that you know that this product is primarily for a gift most of the time. How does that affect how you pitch your product, how you talk about it throughout the year or when you're actively selling?
Yeah, yeah, I think that honestly makes it super difficult. Not so much that it's a gift, but that it's a luxury product. Like I know that you don't need my flowers to live. Like you can't eat them, you
Mhm.
can't wear them, you can't live in them. So they're not a necessity for anyone. Um, but I think they're the part that makes the fun part of life. You know, that's the fun thing to have. I think it's good for our well-being. It's good for your mental health, and so it's. But people are kind of like struggling a little bit right now, and so I do feel it's hard for me to say like you should spend this much kind of money on this product that you don't really need. Like so, it's definitely something that I work hard at just explaining to people how much like peace and joy this little bouquet of flowers can bring them, especially people who are in the trenches with me, raising kids or working and things like that. Just having those flowers and how much how simple joy they are to have,
Mhm.
without really adding to like the clutter and the
Mhm.
stuff that's weighing you down in your house as opposed to some other things that you might buy.
Yeah, it's definitely an indulgence. And um, I feel like what I tell myself every time I get them, it's like I say to myself, I deserve this. And
Yeah,
that's kind of
yeah.
what we want. That's kind of what we want all of these our customers to believe, right? Like I deserve this and I need to take care of me. I want to point out your homepage has some really good copy and I want to encourage those of you who are listening, if you're a flower farmer, go check out our homepage. It's rudylaneflowerfarm.com and you have a section there. I'm going to read it because it's just really good. In big bold headline, it says it's self-care period. And then under that, you have some beautiful language. It says, you are everything for everybody. You clock in and day out, only to come home to cook dinner. Then you sort, wash, and fold laundry, rush off to chauffeur those kids to soccer, gymnastics, and basketball practice. Having fresh flowers on the dining table is a simple pleasure that will make you feel like you've got all your ducks in a row. You know who else has fresh flowers on her table? Martha Stewart. Look at you in company with Martha Stewart. You go, girl. And I loved this as I was reading it. I'm like, oh, it's just so accessible. Your language feels very genuine. I feel like I'm having a conversation. I can hear your personality. I can hear your inspirational language like you deserve this, girl. And it's encouraging me to believe in myself and take care of myself. So I just want to applaud you for that. Because
Thank
it
you.
doesn't come off as salesy. It's just very like pep talk, like you're amazing. Do something that shows that you're amazing and believe in yourself. So anybody who's selling flowers, just go read that and be inspired. Maybe write your own version of that because I thought it was very effective. I want to encourage you to try and figure out how many of those sales came from email and how many came from social. If there is a way that you can track that, because I think that would be very insightful. And maybe you can message me next week if you find that out, let me know. Because if it ends up being email, what would that tell you?
Oh yeah, definitely that I need to focus more on my email marketing or my email list for sure.
Yeah. How are you collecting an email list throughout the year? Let's start talking a little bit about the rest of your general like sales funnel, how you get people to find out you exist and what are you doing to, because you talked about how you have social media. Um, you have Facebook and
Yeah,
Instagram,
so
TikTok, where are you
yes,
at?
I am definitely on Facebook and Instagram. I am very much dabbling in TikTok, but realistically, I, and I might be making too broad of an assumption. I think my ideal customer is not on
Is
TikTok.
not on TikTok, yeah.
Um,
I'm not on TikTok,
actually,
so it's okay. Like, I don't want you to feel like I'm saying you should be.
right. I think that it's funny because I love Instagram. I don't know why. I just like that format. I like the stories and I like the way people interact on Instagram. But my customers are on Facebook,
Mhm.
so I it's kind of a little bit of a catch-22 for me because I feel like I understand Instagram reels and stories, but then I don't feel like it translates as well on Facebook. Like I don't think my Facebook people watch my stories, so I have a
Yeah.
harder time, I think, getting that no like and trust factor built up because I feel like that's where you do that is in your stories. The reels on Facebook, I don't even understand why. Which one do you want? Do you want it to be a video or a reel? I don't know. Neither one of them do well for me on Facebook, so I don't even know why I bother. But my still photos do well on Facebook. So yeah, like obviously knowing your target demographic, and most of mine is, I would say, ladies in their 30s or older, um, probably married, probably have kids, whether they're young kids or grown kids. But they're kind of like basically similar to me or my mom or my sister. So it kind of makes it a little easier, I feel like, to kind of know who I'm talking to if I'm kind of talking to myself, or my friends or whatever. So that's helpful. But yeah, to get them off of social media and onto my email list, for one, the easiest or one of the simplest bits of marketing is just that I can tell them that my email lists are going to get the notifications of these things before I post it on social media. I'm not like hard fast about what time or how much in advance, but and I tell them, like, you may not see my Facebook post. Facebook might not show you that wreath workshops are open, but the people who get my emails are going to know that it's going to go directly into their inbox, guaranteed, and they'll be able to see, oh, here's the message from Megan that says when this is open or when subscriptions are open. And so that's the easy way. And I just tell them, send me your first name and your email address, and I'll add you manually. In addition to that, also at your recommendation, I made email opt-in that was my goal last winter. So I have two. One is a bloom calendar. So it's just a real simple calendar that says, kind of has some pictures, and it just says like, here's what's blooming when. So if you were kind of like curious of what's going to be in a subscription, you could see that, oh, the spring ones are going to have tulips, daffodils, and lilacs and peonies, and versus the summer ones are going to have sunflowers and snapdragons and dahlias and things like that. So that's kind of like a real simple one. And then I also did last year a growing guide. So I have a lot of people who follow me more for growing tips. And they're people who are local. They might come to the farm stand or whatever, but they also have an interest in trying to grow some things themselves. So I made like a beginner's guide to a cutting patch. So, kind of, here's how much area you need. Here's things that I would um, like set up as far as like weed barriers and irrigation. And here's the top 7 flowers I would plant if I was you. And here's where I get my seeds from. So it's kind of like, I think it was like 9 or 10 pages. And so I put that out there. That actually was my most successful opt-in. I think I probably doubled my email list from that. And it kind of worked out. When I saw how much response I had from that, I just kind of gave me the boost I needed to host a seed starting workshop. So then I had applied the tag in MailChimp to that often. So then I could direct market that workshop to the people who signed up for the growing guide. So I knew people who, most likely the people who signed up for the growing guide would be interested in the seed starting workshop, as opposed to people who signed up for the calendar who are more interested in like the subscriptions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am curious. So you've talked about how people find out about you via social media. Are people also finding out about you in other ways? Like, is word of mouth a big factor? Are you showing up on Google? Like, do people search for you? Like, do you know how people hear about you?
Yeah, so I've looked into that a little bit. I'm definitely on showing up on Google, and I've looked a little bit into the, like where people are coming from, and it is still a lot from Facebook. But I think a lot of people are using Facebook like a search engine. Like they probably
Okay.
type it into Facebook as quickly as they do into Google.
Okay.
And then I get some direct clicks too. But yeah, I definitely think I could definitely get word of mouth. Luckily, I'm kind of in the Facebook age. Like we were the group that started Facebook time. So my people or my friends or things like that, my cohorts are like comfortable with posting and tagging me. And like when they hung their completed wreath up on their door, or like tagging someone like, thank you for this bouquet subscription that you got me. So it definitely helps that way. And then I think that the other thing I have going is that we're 30 minutes from Jefferson City, and most of the people in my area commute to the city, but we're also somewhat far enough away that people are just really happy to have a business that focused on our community and serving the people in our community, and having this opportunity for them to not have to drive into the city to be able to participate in something like this. So, and we're just, even my small town is really tight knit in that they're just like, we love what you're doing, and like you're putting our little town on the map. And it's funny because I'm kind of an import here anyway, because I'm my husband's from here. I moved over here from the city basically. So
Yeah.
but it's really fun to be a part of that, and people really support what you're doing, and bringing these things to our town without feeling like they're skipping us to go on to the city. So we've gotten a huge response from the local. We deliver into the city our subscriptions, but a vast majority of them are going local. So I thought that was pretty cool. There's a huge population, not that far away, but I'm really being supported by the local community first. And that's was really cool to see this year. For sure.
Yeah, for sure. Very hyper local. So what is the opportunity here? You have a captive audience, you have a group of customers that have purchased this subscription flower share. And I always tell farmers, like, these are the people that you can, drive more revenue from. And so the opportunity is like, what else can I offer them to buy? Or do I just have to wait until next November and ask them to buy this again? Like, what else is it that you could offer your clients to try and increase your like lifetime customer value? Or do you not have plans for that? Is it really just, I only can do this much, I have this many flowers and that's it, and I'm maxed out? Is that kind of where you're at right now?
Yeah, a little bit. I've kind of done a little bit of like targeting towards kind of like keeping those people on and involved, especially for the ones who did receive it as a gift. So like at the end of the spring subscription last year, I included like a gift certificate that they could use towards the farm stand. So my summer ones were already sold out, but I didn't want those people to drop off. So I was like, maybe I can encourage them to come down to the farm stand. And certainly some of them did use them because they were in the drop box. So that kind of was like maybe effective. And then with my summer folks last year, I wanted to reach the people that were actually receiving the gift. So maybe I'm not doing this the best way, but right now the only way I can contact the recipients is through the person who purchased. So I say that because I just will say, like, I send a reminder email the day before, like, hey, bouquets come tomorrow. Don't forget, especially for the monthly ones. But that kind of goes to the ones who bought it. And so like they got to tell their mom or whatever, which is not a huge deal. But if I wanted to ask the recipient a question, I don't really have that ability, good, bad, or otherwise. So with that in mind, last fall, at the end of the subscriptions, I included a little postcard with a QR code on it. And I just thanked them, first of all, for being part of the subscription and how, unfortunately, this was their last bouquet for the year. But that I would love to have their feedback on what they liked and so forth. If they would just scan that QR code, I like a 7 question, take them like 2 minutes. Feedback, whatever survey, and it had a spot where they could leave reviews. So I the questions were pretty simple. Just wanted to make sure, like, or I wanted to see, like, would you rather have a weekly bouquet option? Did you want them on a different day of the week? Just a little bit of feedback, because I think I thought I had it dialed in, but I want to obviously know what the people felt.
Yeah.
And then the last question, or a couple questions I had, what's one word that you feel when you get flowers, or when your subscription arrives? And then the last one was, would you like to leave me a review? But the hook was that anybody who submits gets a chance to win a free wreath, evergreen wreath. And I got like 60% of the responses, which is astronomical, I'm told, in the survey world. So it was effective. But because of that, I got some amazing reviews written. And I ended up putting them, they're on my website, so y'all can go look at them. That's where they came from, was from that little survey. And all it cost me was that a wreath that I can make. So
oh, that is brilliant. That's another gem in this episode. I was going to ask, like, how are you acquiring testimonials in this process? So for those of you who are listening, this is one of the challenges is if you are giving away, if many of your flowers are going as gifts, then you don't have direct access to the person who's actually benefiting from the product. And how do you get their contact information, right? But also, how can you get their feedback? How can you get a testimonial from them? And that is a great example of how you can tease that out. I'm wondering if some of them are older, they're probably highly excited at the thought of getting a wreath workshop, or a free wreath. Like, that would be really fun. I could picture my grandmother or my aunt being excited about that, and that would be some wonderful bait. Did you ask for their email address as well in that process? Did they have to submit that?
They did. Oh, that's what it was. I told them that up until that point, up until the probably until the review, I told them it's anonymous, like, because
yeah,
sometimes you don't want people to know how you think, but so it's I said, it's up anonymous up until this point. If you want to be entered for that wreath, you got to drop your email down here so I can contact you. And that's what they did. And like, no, I don't think anybody left it anonymous, because they were all luckily happy with their subscription, and it was all positive. So
yeah. Oh, that's so brilliant. I love that. Well, it seems like I know this doesn't sound like something you want to do for your business, but if you were another flower farmer that had the ability to expand and had the bandwidth, it seems like there would be a lot of other opportunities to encourage that buyer to buy more flowers in maybe at Mother's Day or Valentine's Day. Like, there's many more moments where you can say, hey, here, you've had this experience, you know what it's like. Do you want to give it to someone else? Here's an offer so that you can share what you've experienced with someone that you love. Here's how it works. Sounds like you don't have the ability to do that yet, but just want to make sure my audience knows that there's an opportunity there once you have a captive audience to try and find other ways to get them to buy flowers at other times of the year or gift it to someone else.
Yeah, and the arranging workshops are pretty good for that too, because they're like, they like the flowers, they're going to get to go home with a bouquet of flowers, and they feel like they learned something as well. So definitely think that is, like you mentioned, is another opportunity for the folks who are already on the subscription list, but they want to do kind of something else where they can interact more with me directly, and the workshops are a good opportunity for that.
Yeah, I was thinking too, like another lead generator for you idea might be like a challenge of some sort, like a 3 day or 5 day challenge that you run live um, on social media, or you could just do like the first 2 days live. And then if they want to get the rest of the content, they have to have subscribed to your email, to the, the lead magnet challenge, um, the challenge form, whatever. And then you're dripping out the rest of the content through an email on days 3, 4, and 5. I don't know exactly what your topic could be. I don't know if it, if it would be an educational thing, like how to arrange, like arranging flowers. That would be something to sort of think about. But you might get some people who raise their hand for that and say, oh, that sounds fun. That'd be a little project I can do with my kids for the next 5 days. And every day you build on it. Like, here's the next thing you do, or try this version. So maybe that helps
Okay.
somebody out there to
Yeah.
play around with it. I'm always testing different ideas. So, all right. I feel like we're coming to the end. What have been some of the biggest, I wanted to ask you, what have been some of the biggest struggles for you in your marketing journey along the way? So you've been doing this for what, 4 or 5 years now?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
what can you think back, like what were those big hurdles that you had to overcome? And I'm asking this question because I want to point out to people that it is normal when you're building a business. You should expect hurdles. Like, they are part of the journey. And so when you hit one, or when you experience fear, like, you're not weird. You're like, they come. It continues to happen. You will always feel fear. Once you overcome a hurdle, there will be another one, and you have to go into that new territory. So you'll feel fear again. So I'm just kind of curious, what were some of those milestones for you where you had to overcome something? Can you remember any of them that you want to share?
Yeah, totally. I can probably remember all of them, scarred by them. Um, but like I kind of mentioned before, I was so nervous to even talk about my business, which is silly because I put all this effort into it. Um, like I can remember about like literally almost wanting to pass out thinking about making a Facebook post, which is hilarious to me now because I post like 5 times a week and story. Like I remember re-recording my stories like 3 or 4 times and like fixing my hair and things like that. So I've been there, and I mean, I'm not saying I don't still do a little bit of that, but I've definitely been there, and most of it is just you just, and you hear this all the time. It's really annoying, but like you just got to keep doing it, and you get better at it, and confidence comes from succeeding at it, but there's gonna also be the failures in between,
Mhm.
and definitely being open to pivoting and being open to leaning into what works as long as it aligns with your goals, um leaning into that, and you might find success where you didn't necessarily think you would. Um my my wreath workshops are, as far as gross revenue, is ties my flowers
Mm.
subscriptions. So knowing that, um, I kind of like need to pay attention to that. And I like doing the wreaths. If I didn't like doing the wreaths at all, I wouldn't tell you to pursue that. But I do like doing them. So keeping that um, open and being aware of that, that's just something that is an opportunity there, and kind of being aware of that. But I love what you always say about the land of no, or whatever, the
Yeah.
answers are living in the land of no. And I try to, like, I give myself that pep talk because people, like you said, people are going to tell you no just the same as you tell people no.
Mhm.
And it's just funny how much more aware of things you are, now that when you're an entrepreneur, when you see other people selling things, and you learn your own, you see what your own psychology is, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm exactly one of the masses. Like I do exactly what they say. And so I think that when you have those failures, you just learn from it. I love the phrase, I either win or I learn. And I have done that. I say that probably weekly here because I have messed up so many things. Like I have had terrible crop failures, insects. Like I had to work last year in May. I don't know if you remember, it was so hot and dry, and peonies have to be harvested 2 times a day. Well, it was so hot and windy I come back and I had an entire row of peonies, hundreds of stems blown open, unsellable because they already opened before I could give them to the customer. And I thought, well, that's sad because I cannot sell those stems anymore. But I learned that it's going to be hot. I'm going to have to harvest more frequently. And I have a lot of photos, wonderful Instagram marketing photos of this one kind of peony because I harvested them and I used them and I took a million different pictures of them. So, like, that's just how it is. And I think that every time I have a failure, it's one less thing I'm going to have to learn next year because now I know. And that's what's been the best for me moving forward is that you're always just improving every year. You're improving, and I'm like excited about like, wow, look how many things I've learned, how many lessons I've learned, how many mistakes I won't make again. And if you keep that mindset, it just really is going to make your business a lot better and make your life a lot easier for sure.
Thank you for being transparent there. This has been something that I have one of the big ahas that I made this past year was this idea that I will never arrive. Like, because for the longest time, I thought I just got to keep doing more things and figuring out, building more systems until like it all churns perfectly. And it's just this well-oiled machine. And what I've discovered is that the problems never go away. Like you solve problems, but then new problems arrive when you get to the next level. They're just different problems. And that is something I feel like I want to tell people now, like, hey, there's always going to be problems in your business. There's always going to be the next hurdle, the next challenge, the next moment of fear. And that's just par for the course. So if you run into a problem, don't feel like there's something wrong with you. It's what you should expect. It's just part of the game. And that becomes then the next opportunity to grow. I wrote this sentence down that you shared. I either win or I learn. I love that. And what it made me think of was like, what if that learning moment is actually the win? And that's a totally different way of looking at it, like it's not even either or. What if like what if there is no bad? What if everything is, a win if you look at it like, I'm so glad I learned this because now I'm going to crush it next time. And that could be seen as a win.
I told my husband in December, I said something like, I did so many hard things this year. Like, I am so proud of myself. I did these things that were really hard. And you take a second to acknowledge that. And you really should be proud of yourself. Anybody who is an entrepreneur, especially in farming, like, there are things that maybe other people wouldn't think are hard, but like figuring out how to make that email opt-in and put it in the link in the email, that's hard for us. And when you do the YouTube videos and you follow the steps and then you finally do it, you should be proud of yourself because that's a hard thing and you just accomplished it. So don't forget to take time to acknowledge when you've done something that maybe a tech person would say that's easy, but dang, we figured it out. We should be proud. Way to go us. So for sure.
I have a coach, and whenever I achieve something that's kind of cool, I'll just quick text her and be like, I did this. And you know what she does? Like almost every time, I chuckle now. She'll be like, great. How are you celebrating? And I'm like, oh, I'm not. And she's constantly challenging me to like, remember to celebrate when we do hard things. And I think so easily we just blow past it and we set the next goal and we keep going instead of stopping and being like, hey, that's awesome. Like pause for a moment and stand here and look at this and reward yourself. So maybe somebody needed to hear that today. Go celebrate something awesome that you just did. Go buy yourself some flowers. Cool. Well, this has been so fun. I'm really glad that you reached out to me and that we got to meet. Thank you for sharing your story. There were a lot of really, I think, great, wise words that were shared in this episode. Where can people learn more about your farm if they want to go check you out?
Yeah, so my website is simple, rudylaneflowerfarm.com. That's Rudy, like Rudy. And then on Instagram, we're on Rudy Lane. And on Facebook, we're Rudy Lane Flower Farm. And I would love for you to message me if you listen to the podcast and just let me know if I was remotely valuable to you. So just send me a message. I'd love to hear from anybody who's listening for sure.
I will put those links in the show notes. And again, thanks so much for coming onto my show and letting me meet you. I learned a lot from you today, and I was inspired by you. Appreciate it. I really enjoyed that conversation. I hope you did too. A big thank you to Megan for reaching out to me and saying, hey, I have a story to share. I'd love to be on the show. If you want to share a story of your own, if you think you'd be a great podcast guest, please reach out to me, because you never know, it might be a match. And all you have to do is email me at mydigitalfarmers@gmail.com. Tell me your story, and maybe it'll be a match and you can come onto the show and share what you've learned with thousands of other listeners. Today's show notes can be found at mydigitalfarmer.com/247. And I'll be sure to include the links that Megan shared in her episode there. If you liked this episode, or if you think someone else needs to hear it, would you please, please, please share the link with a friend, or tell a farmer friend about this podcast and say, you've got to listen to it. It's got some really great marketing wisdom inside. I'm trying to make as many people aware as possible that I exist. And so that is the best way that you can say thank you and give back to the show. Don't forget, if you want to get onto my email list, I have some free stuff to send your way to make your marketing even better. You can go to mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe. I'm also now on Instagram at mydigitalfarmer. I'd love to connect with you there. And if you're interested in checking out my farm marketing school and subscribing to my monthly membership, you can do so at mydigitalfarmer.com/FMS. Thanks for joining me today, you guys. I will catch you next time. Have an awesome week. Bye-bye.